Okay, we're going to get the program kicked off as folks begin filtering in. We're going to be asking the question is, why are we so divided? What is causing this country, this nation, this great nation of ours, to have such a divided peoples? What is it about this nation that is causing everybody to be divided? There is just a significant amount of infighting. What's going on in America that is continuing to make us not necessarily just disagree with each other, but in some cases, downright hate each other, for lack of a better aggressive term? What is causing all of the division in America? Is there any solution to it? And I guess the other question we're going to be asking is, who might be worthy of the blame in terms of all of the division in America? Is there any kind of solution for it? Because we could be headed down a dark path. You've seen what's happened throughout the summer of 2020 with riots happening all over the country. Obviously, January 6th. Obviously, the Capitol or the governor's capital in Michigan being surrounded. We have a lot of disagreements among each other. So, what is leading to this? What is a potential solution for this? Josh, you're stating that Biden said he has cancer. I have not heard about that. When was that announced? I did not hear that. The Democrats are the problem with this country. Cara Forant, 87. Elaborate on that. What makes the Republicans perfect for harmony and the Democrats problematic to America? What's making only the Democrats be the problem for this country? As Smokey the Bear used to say, only you. So you're suggesting that only Democrats are the problem and what's causing division. I did not know, I didn't hear that speech today in regards to Biden stating that he has cancer, but wow. Wow, that's, and the thing is, I got CNN tuned in now. I just came home from the gig, tuned into the news, which I generally have running behind me, either Fox News or CNN, and it's not running across as like a break. It's not even on the banner. So I'd have to see what else comes out of that. Anything that has to do with God, Democrats are against, says Pedro Mendez. It's a great question. Why are Democrats generally against things that have to do with God? Because the Democrats are more fans of freedom of religion. The Republicans tend to be pro-Christianity. So the overwhelming majority of Republicans are in favor of Christianity, not Buddhism, not Islam or anything. It's predominantly Christian. So that is why and it's a good question. I don't mind the question being asked, but that is why you're going to have a lot more defense of Christianity coming from Republicans in the GOP than you are from Democrats. Is America about to be in a big war? With who? With whom? Unless you're suggesting a civil war, which is what we're talking about here. Why is America so divided? By the way, folks, I appreciate if you tap the screen. We got almost 500 of you in here. Make no mistake about it, as I say on every broadcast, this is a MAGA-friendly location. You can come here, speak your point. There is no censorship of comments. Even if you come in the box, even if you have choice words for your humble correspondent, I don't give a damn what you say. I'm here to let you get your opinion across. And of course, we have civil dialogue here every day, all day. So come on in, stick around a while. You might not like my Democratic dinette set or my liberal lounge, but my house is yours. Come on in, stay a while. Looking at the comments, Democrats believe in the separation of church and state. And as it was written in our Constitution, that says goofy. I agree with that. The Republican Party is also stating that they believe in separation of church and state, but the writing is on the wall that they would prefer it goes along the lines of biblical principles. Let me look in the comments real quick. Your views have went way up, handsome. Yeah, I'm surprised. A lot of folks are in here for a minute. I'm assuming some of these folks will disappear, but we'll see. I want to know what is causing this country to be so divided? Is there a solution for it? And I hate to ask this, but who the hell is to blame? How did America, probably over the last generation or so, some might see it sooner, how did America become so damn divided? And is there any solution for that? The right and the left are to blame. That's a fairly unbiased answer. They're still deplorables. Deplorable, says Cap Z. Okay, shout out to Hillary Clinton. So what is your opinion on the job of your president, Joe? Good question. Who said that? Breton Punk. I would probably give him a C minus. Charlie, C as in Charlie, a C minus at this point. Listen, his poll numbers are not that great. The economy sucks. He's blaming it on every damn body else but himself. So I'm going to give him a rather low grade. At the same time, similar to what President Trump did, where we didn't have to worry about getting in any new wars. The Afghanistan evacuation sucked. And you got to give President Biden credit for that because it happened under his watch. So the Afghanistan evacuation was horrible. Would inflation had risen under President Trump? Would the price at the pump had risen under President Trump? My guess is yes, but I believe he would have done things about it a lot sooner. And I don't believe it would be that particular avenue. Inflation, price at the pump, the cost of fuel. I don't believe we would have sustained the same amount of hurt under President Trump. But that's not to say that he wouldn't have still been tweeting and causing all kinds of other chaotic issues. And Ukraine under President Trump would currently be in the hands of Russia. All right, looking at the comments. And by the way, folks, the box is open. We're talking about division. What the hell is causing this? Because of the trauma caused by it, racists should be sent to prison. The Ebony Prince, how can you send racists to prison when it is incredibly difficult to diagnose racists? No one comes out and admits they are a racist. Even folks like the Klan will state they are not racist. They don't hate anyone. They're for the promotion of the white race. David Duke, not a racist. That's according to him, he's not a racist. So if you want to incarcerate folks for racism, it could be quite challenging because no one is going to confess, and no matter what you do or how you do it, there is always a secondary cause for it, and which would give you plausible deniability. Okay, going back to the comments here, I feel like racism isn't a big part of the problem as media makes us think. Are there some? Yes, of course. Well, in regards to, is the media causing us to think the country has a lot of racism? The FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigations, are not the media. And they came out and boldly stated under the Trump administration in 2017 that the biggest existential threat domestically to this country were white supremacists. That's not the media. You can't blame that on CNN or MSNBC. That is the FBI under President Trump. His own FBI comes out and says that. So can't blame that one on the media, so to speak. You're a joke, says one Don. Like I said, free speech. Why don't you come in the box? Come on in the box. Like I said, I don't ban anything you got to say. You can tell me whatever the hell you want, however the hell you feel. Don't talk shit in the comments. Bring yourself in the box. Make me look bad in front of an audience of, 750. You okay with that? Come on in. I'll leave a light on for you. The same FBI that pushed the Russian dossier. Yeah, that's a good point. Frank, let me go on to the... got Frank Harrison. What do you think about AOC and her invisible handcuff incident? She was faking the funk. And before I go to you, Frank, Frank, as a liberal, I tend to view AOC positively, but there is absolutely no doubt she was faking and trying to pretend she was in handcuffs. And she had some type of spin to it, but who the hell walks around with their hands behind their back like that? Okay, go ahead.
An ex-bartender looking for some tips?
No, you don't do that.
But I actually got on here because of the whole racist thing you were talking about.
Okay, we'll
I
bring it back.
honestly don't believe that racism is a black or white thing. It is truly a rich or poor thing. Because they blame slavery on, but poor white people didn't own slaves. We had slaves, we treated them good, whatever that was. But the poor's, it was the
Well, let me
rich
let me
that were the
let me
bad.
interrupt you. Let me interrupt you by saying there is no such thing as treating somebody in captivity good. If they cannot go home or maintain freedom, doesn't matter what you're doing, it's not good. I mean, it's like
Well,
putting fish in a bowl and feeding them every day. Go ahead.
no, but what I'm saying is there were poor people that had fields, and these people would come, they would make wages or trade barter for food. I mean, not there were farmers out there that weren't super rich. So like I mean, but like today, even today's date, it's not a black or white thing because most of us all get along. But the
Well, let
rich look
me.
down at the
Okay,
poor. The rich look down at
I
the
get
poor.
your Yeah, I get your point. Let me, and I'll let you continue. But I get your point. What you're talking about is classism, and I do agree that if you're on the lower end of the socioeconomical or the lower
Well,
end of
yeah,
the socioeconomic scale, you're going to be treated worse than those who are above. However, that doesn't take away from the fact that many police chiefs, top cops, governors, mayors have admitted that they have treated African Americans, particularly when they're being arrested or charged with a crime, worse. They came out and admitted it. So even if you're poor, dirt poor, and I'm dirt poor, if you're charged with a crime and
well,
I'm charged with the same crime, I may receive a tougher sentence. That's not coming from a liberal or the media. That's
no.
coming from a lot of cops. They've come out and admitted it.
Okay, so here's my thing is that I'm not a black man, but boy, I have had my ass handed to me by the police more times than you can handle. I've had them just walk
Okay.
in my house, beat my ass, and there was nothing that was done about that. And that's in Lyon County. That's in Nevada. They just
Yeah,
walked straight in my house, beat me up, and
Yeah, but
left.
you're talking about it from an individual standpoint. I get that. I mean, you could find an individual that's been, well, I'll take the rapper 50 Cent. He's been shot 9 times and he's bragging about it on his albums. That's not normal though. I'm talking about
No,
on a normal stance. If you
that's just
look
an
at the
asshole that's got a badge. All those people should be
I'm
shot.
just telling you though. I'm just suggesting to you that they have come out and admitted that African Americans receive the shorter end of the stick when it comes to sentencing, fines, probation, and things like that. They get treated worse in court. I mean, the court systems have
Yeah, they
admitted.
do. Oh, I
Okay,
know they
that's what
do.
we're talking
Black
about.
men do. I'm not gonna lie. Black men does get treated badly by the police, but then that's on that conversation we had before that's that Snoop Dogg. That's that NWA, that fuck the police. I mean, there was never if you nowadays, dude, even if you watch all of the police videos, I mean, fuck the police, dude. I fucking hate them. But like you look at them, people seriously are sitting there pushing their buttons, and I don't give a fuck if I work at Taco Bell. These people, I will fucking slam your head on the damn counter for not showing me any. I'm just doing my job, whatever. But like it's like it escalates the situation of already a stressful
Well,
situation.
let me give. You mentioned NWA and having that "fuck the police" attitude. If I
Well,
can
yeah, they
recall,
portrayed it that it was all gangster. I mean, Bloods,
yeah,
Crips. I
but what
mean,
about? Okay, when you mentioned NWA, what about something like the lyrics? They think they have the authority to kill a minority, whereas the point I'm trying to make
yeah,
is even NWA singing "fuck the police." If you listen to the lyrics of that song, you have to ask, why were they saying that back in 1991? What made them have that attitude towards police?
well, yeah, I mean, let's go back to Joe Biden being in politics and not liking black people, not wanting them in schools and brainwashing,
I mean,
certain
he's
people.
one guy. He's one guy, and he wasn't even a president then. He couldn't do
No,
that
it
by
wasn't just
himself.
one guy.
Yeah,
Joe Biden
he
had
was
lots of
one
guys. Those
guy.
are all them people. That's all the government. The government just totally wants it like that. And then it goes on to the same thing. I mean, I already know that the police is crooked as fuck, dude. As a father that was a federal cop, dude, they're crooked as fuck. My dad will pull you over, give you a DWI. That son of a bitch would have a beer right in his cop car.
Okay.
So, I know
But
that for
you
a fact.
you do admit, even from your own standpoint, that African Americans have received the short end of the stick from police.
Yes, they have.
Okay.
And
Now
but
let's skip
it
past. Okay, now let's skip past police. Let's not just make this a bashing police thing. What about housing? Do you think housing in this country, as far as where you could purchase a house, certain neighborhoods you could buy in and things like that, do you think that that
oh
has?
that's Karen exists, buddy. Karen exists big time, dude. She's a nasty white bitch. I swear to God. That's why I even told you. Karen exists, dude. I don't care what it is. You can move into a neighborhood and be the way I dress, dude. I look like a scary ass biker. I'm in a community, dude, with a bunch of Karens, dude. And they all look at me funny. They all know that I'm a hard ass working man, though, so they all give me respect. But when I first got here, bro, man, I got fucked with all the time. They were constantly calling like, "What's this guy doing? What's this guy doing?" You know? Yeah, fucking Karen exists
So
everywhere. I don't care. I don't
right.
care where you
So let
move
me
to. Karen
so
exists.
let me ask you this. So when minorities, particularly African Americans, cry out racism in 2022, do you think they have a legitimate reason to say that, or are they just making it up, just being a victim?
I pretty much think it's gone out of control. Like after George Floyd, I'm sorry, dude, it blew up to like even where they were beating just random strangers. I mean, I mean, it blows up, dude, and it did, and now it's escalated to the point where everybody's racist. I'm not a racist man, I'm not. But now I get it from everywhere I go. I go into a store and just the way I look, people will be like, "Oh, look at that racist fucker,"
Well,
and it's like,
so
no,
what you're suggesting is that African Americans have taken it out of hand and they're claiming everything is racism. I understand your point, but I'm asking you, do they have any legitimacy at all, or is it just 100% fabricated?
well, how many things out there? I mean, on a daily basis, how many times a day do you get racism?
It's a good question. Well, I will say this because most racism has always been in the shadows. Let me give you a perfect example. I used to own property in Chicago, several apartment buildings I owned in Chicago. And
Uh huh.
I had mortgages with a variety of different companies. Countrywide Bank was one of those companies. After I got out of the game, out of the property game, after the housing crash in 2008 or whatever it was,
Yeah,
I
two
get
hundred
a
thousand
note.
dollars for me.
Yeah, I got a notice of a class action suit from an attorney asking me if I wanted to be part of it. It turns out Countrywide Financial was deliberately giving higher interest rates to minorities as opposed to
Mhm.
white people. So but the point I'm trying to make is when you say how often are you a victim of racism, you may not even know it. You may think you're truly getting pulled over because you have a tail light broke out when it's simply
Yeah.
because they noticed who was driving the car. So I can't answer that question because I don't know.
Well, at any point when the officer walked up, did you feel like it?
No, because you can be nice to a person. Keep in mind the
So then it's not
hold on, wait a minute,
racism.
hold on.
Hang on,
This is
hang
what I'm
on.
just. No, you didn't let me you didn't let me answer your
Okay.
question. What I'm trying to tell you is this: during slavery, the slave owners would let African Americans in to raise their children, breastfeed their children, and everything. Completely
Mhm.
nice to them. Let them sleep inside the mansion and everything. Very nice, but they still were racist. Go ahead.
Well, if it's not being, it's just an opinion. But I see what you're saying. If it's physical, then that I can see being racist. But if a man doesn't like somebody because of his skin, that's actually probably his preference, and he probably doesn't like half the white people either. I mean, I don't fucking like no crackhead, and I hate everybody in California. I ain't even joking. All that whole train, that shit to me, dude. I'm sorry, I'm a godly man, dude, and I don't even care. I'm a foul mouth man too, but like it's my opinion, I love everybody in this world, but I'm sorry, man. If I go to California and I see blue rags, pants hanging off your ass, looking like you, just a thug mug bug, dude. I'm sorry, dude. I just don't like that type of person, and I don't believe that you like fit into society. You should go somewhere else, you know. And I believe
You
that with
want
white
to kick
people.
them.
I believe
You
that with
want to
white
kick them
people
out
more
of
than
you.
anything.
You want to kick them completely out of the country because they're wearing their pants low. Do you have an issue against plumbers?
No, I just think we should make them a place for it. I mean, if you guys want to steal, rob, kill, whatever it is that you're portraying, that's the type of person you. Because see, I got a 15-year-old son. He dresses gothic. Okay, drives me fucking insane. But that's him. But even like I told him, I'm like, dude, his buddies all got in trouble for smoking marijuana, and he's 15. Well, I had my son piss tested. I wanted to know. If parents say that he was in the room while the weed was smoking. I want to know. They said you didn't look like you was smoking, but I want to know. So I piss tested my kid. And the only reason why I piss tested my kid is because I told him, you look like the 15-year-old that would be smoking weed. I said, so
Okay,
I need
so
to piss
so
test you.
you're so what you're saying is you're putting yourself at a detriment when you deliberately look like somebody who normally does wrong.
Yep. And I don't even like the people that dress like golf tees and all that shit, man. Those guys to
So
me,
let
like,
me ask. So let me ask. Okay, that's a fair point. Let me ask you this.
the
So if
the
someone
nicer the
goes
dressed
around,
man, the faster he's
okay.
gonna rip you off.
So let me ask you this. What do you say of someone who deliberately drives around in a pickup truck with a Confederate flag waving? How do they look to an African American?
He looks like he wants to get his ass whooped, is what it looks like to me.
Okay.
Because
So
that's the only way.
you also would not have any patience with
No, I
somebody
mean,
like that either.
well, because right now, if you were to drive around with a Confederate flag and people are screaming that it's racist, and I mean, to me, I would say that someone's putting it out there that, hey, you know what? Fuck you people, dude. I love this flag. I mean, I don't believe it's a racist flag, but I still ain't going to drive around with it and be like, hey, rub it in your fucking
But
face.
yeah,
It's
what
like,
that's okay. I do got to move it on, but I'll give you the last word. The point I'm trying to make is the argument you could make in favor of not being racist by waving a Confederate flag. The guy wearing
oh
his
no.
pants around his ass could make the same argument as to why he's doing that for a different reason. Also, the point I'm trying to make is you can see the thug in the guy with the pants around his ass, but you don't see the racist in the guy with the Confederate flag, even though a host of races throughout American history use that flag as a symbol. I don't see where you make, but I'll give you the last word. Go ahead.
But that's ignorant people using it as it.
Okay,
That
why can't
wasn't
the
the
guy with his?
true meaning of the flag. I mean, because in honesty, the American flag is probably the most racist flag. I mean, it's killed more races than any other flag. Any other flag out there has not killed as many as the Americans flag.
Okay.
Seriously, like it's killed the Mexicans, it's killed the Hindus, the China, the Britons. I mean, you go on with how many people died underneath the American flag, and it's a flag. It was a symbol. It was a symbol of freedom. LGBTQ. I mean, that just because you fly an LGBTQ flag, I mean, it's a fucking flag, you know. But if you portray yourself as a fucking like that type, like you were talking about, that misuse the Confederates, then yes, you're a fucking white supremacist. But you know those people. You know those people because they don't have certain people in their worlds, and you can just tell that they are redneck.
All
Because I'm
right.
gonna tell you right now, I'll tell you, I know that secret racism because there's a guy here in this town and he's very racist, dude. I stopped working for his ass because he very racist man. And
All right.
and well that was when all the BLM happened, dude. I cut that man off. But like I said, it's a flag. But it did represent freedom for the American people. You
All
know,
right.
it's
Appreciate you coming
there
through.
are
I do got to
idiots
move it
out
on,
there.
man. All right. Fair enough. Appreciate you coming through, Frank. Come on back anytime, man.
Yep. Hey, and it's like the Snoop Dogg thing. Just because Snoop Dogg wore his pants off his ass and he's a good representable person, but there's idiots out there that are fucking misrepresenting what that man is trying to do by, like, hey, we can take rap and we can become famous, and yeah, it
All right. I
just
got you.
it,
Okay. Catch you later. Okay. Let me to the box in a minute, but I just want to make the point that when you talk about these different images that make someone look a certain way, I just wanted to bring up the Confederate flag because a large portion of America at this point believes it makes people look a certain way. Now he's probably correct in pointing out a incredible amount of loss of life at the hand of the American flag. Certainly more than the Confederate flag. However, the Confederate flag is responsible for more loss of American lives because we lost more lives in the Civil War started by the Confederates than any war in U.S. history, and multiple wars combined. All right, going back to the box, straight white male. I love this name. It should be an interesting conversation. By the way, here, feel free to state your point. Straight white male, talk to me.
So, do you know how many times I've been blocked just joining rooms on this app alone just because of my name?
Same as me because of my name, probably, but I welcome you here, sir. you think I can get into a MAGA room with a name like that?
I've seen
I
you.
get your, as Bill Clinton would say, I feel your pain. Go ahead.
Yeah, you know about like that this all this is perpetuated by media and the government. There's no doubt about that. And the reason I say that is because the George Floyd case, and I didn't really follow the news or care about the news myself until like I started seeing like on Facebook like riots and stuff, and then started
Give me your, okay, when you say the George Floyd case, what do you mean?
to after it happened, they started having riots and things of that nature.
But let me ask you this. That's a good point you would bring up. Let me ask you this. When you see, I'm assuming you saw the video footage of what happened to George Floyd, correct?
Yes.
Now, obviously, it tugs at your heartstrings, but that's not the point I'm trying to make. The point I would ask is, when you see that kind of footage, and it takes you 4 days to even arrest that cop, how do you expect the public to react to that?
Oh no, I'm not. I'm not doubting what they were reacting to, how they were
Yeah.
reacting. I think maybe they overreacted.
How
And
should they react? You even had
I
and let me make it clear, I'm not defending anybody burning down places and threatening cops,
That's what
but
I'm talking
when you
about.
got when you got both the governor of Minnesota and the mayor of, I believe, St. Paul and Minneapolis, begging them to arrest this dude. 4 days. I mean, like, how? What the hell was going on? But go ahead.
But yeah, I mean, they overreacted. Like me as a white man, if that happened to me, do you really believe that they would react that way if it happened to me, or I would be on the news?
If you're, I mean, I hate to say this way, but if your people, and I know it sounds racist as hell to say that, but if your people reacted to you on the ground like George Floyd, the way they reacted to the Michigan mask mandates or the
Hmm.
election in January 6th, yeah, it would be outraged. It's not the fact that you're not African American. It's the fact that your people, for lack of a better term, do not do anything about that. They have other issues that they're more concerned with, such as mask mandates and vaccines, not you laying on the ground being choked out.
Hmm. Well, the reason I say that, you heard of Tony Temper, right?
Who?
See what I'm saying? Tony Tempa is a guy. August 10th of 2016, he was a 32-year-old. He had called 911 for help. He was on like he had mental health issues and he was off his medication and he had taken drugs. So essentially, from what I understand of the story, anyway, he was on illegal drugs, just like George Floyd. He was a white guy, and it was in 2016. The cops held him down, they just like George Floyd, and even laughed, saying, "I hope I didn't kill him," while they were laughing.
I think
But
I have heard this brought up before, but continue.
yeah, and nothing like I didn't even hear about that until I heard about George Floyd, which George Floyd happened long after. So I just think it's perpetuated They what I mean is they tug at your heartstrings, like you was just saying, which validated my point.
Well, and now that
Y'all
you
are
know, let me
concerned
ask
with
you this
that,
question.
so they do.
Let Okay, let me ask you this question. Now that you know about this guy, and I've had it brought up before on my program, a lot of white people know about this guy. Why is there no white outrage about him?
That's exactly my point. I
Yeah.
didn't, like I was saying, I didn't even hear about it or know about it until after George Floyd, which happened, way after. This was in 2016 when it happened to Tony Timpa. So I didn't even know nothing about it. I didn't hear nothing about it. So it's like they, like you were saying, that's an issue for you, your community. So they tug at your heartstrings because they know we're
Yeah.
not going to I guess we're not going to react like that. I don't know. I don't know for sure, but I don't think I don't
Well,
think
every community has issues that they believe is putting them at a detriment, such as taking religions out of schools. You're not going to hear a lot of African Americans complaining about that. It's mostly white people. Same thing with the vaccines and things like that. So it's not that Caucasians are incapable of protesting or speaking out. They just choose different issues. What happened to that guy was not very important to them. There's another guy in Arkansas that was died at the hands of police in a controversial manner, a white guy in
Mhm.
northwestern Arkansas, up there near Joplin or Bentonville over there in Arkansas. And believe it or not, the family asked Al Sharpton and Ben Crump to come over there, and they did it. This is a white town, a white victim, and a white police department. And Al Sharpton and Ben Crump, I believe Al Sharpton eulogized the funeral and everything, protesting with them and everything. That, once again, did not make a lot of news, but that actually happened. But I'm just simply saying, if there
I
are
believe you.
victims,
Oh, I was saying I believe you. That's what I'm saying though. It don't make the news like throughout the entire nation. When it's a white person. But like for example, that whole George Floyd thing was, I mean, that was nationwide. Everybody heard about that.
well,
I
I
think
would
I
say,
think they're just perpetuating going
go
off
ahead.
people's emotions and make. I was just saying, I think they're making people react a certain way to push some sort of agenda, and I don't think it's a good one. Personally, that's
Well,
just my
yeah, and
personal opinion.
I agree that the media sensationalizes things, but it would be no different than when a illegal immigrant sneaks into America and he kills someone, and you hear it about him doing that all over right wing media because they know the notion of an illegal immigrant, particularly if they're Hispanic, coming into this country and killing people. Not only does that lead to folks like me putting up the hat, but it also is red meat for MAGA Republicans and folks like that. So both sides know what to do to cater to their base. You'll never hear at a Trump rally about some Hispanic that came to the country, made it through school, and now they're a decorated member in the military. You're going to hear about the one that came over here and killed up a bunch of people because that's what is red meat to their audience. Just like in our community, you're probably not going to hear a lot of positive shit about police because that's not what our community is looking for.
It's interesting you brought that up because the Republicans just put a Hispanic in Congress down in Texas, and that was run by Democrats for a long time. So that's interesting and I know about that. So
Yeah, but that's
uh,
not an illegal
that's
immigrant.
just
I said
interesting.
illegal immigrant. The goal of the Republican Party is to make illegal immigrants look like rapists and murderers that Trump was talking about. I'm not talking about somebody who was born in America. I mean, of course, that's different. I'm talking about their goal is to make all illegal immigrants look like they are a danger to America.
I don't think that's what they are saying. From what I gather from it, I think
Okay.
they're saying, uh, there's bad people that are coming. Not all of them are bad, but a good majority of them are bad because
Well, when you
when
say
you cross. just like even for example, when you're here in the States, like I know because when I was a kid, I did some dumb stuff. Like in Alabama, I lived where I live in Alabama. It was a dry county when I was growing up, when I was a kid, when I was younger. In a dry county, what that means is you can't sell alcohol. For people that don't know, you can't sell alcohol in the store. So I had to cross state lines over to Mississippi in order to get alcohol. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I hear you. Well, this is what I'm talking
Yeah,
about. You
in
said there.
order to.
Okay, hang on. You said they're not saying all, just some of them. When Trump stated they're not sending us their best and brightest people, they're sending rapists and murderers. That doesn't sound like some. He's saying all. That sounds a lot closer to all. And not only is he saying they're sending bad people, he's pointing out the worst of humanity. He didn't talk about they're sending us thieves or they're sending us high school dropouts. He said rapists and murderers, literally the worst of humanity. And that came from President Trump.
Oh yeah, I mean, think about it like this: if you're an individual like that, you're not really going to do it where you're known. You're going to go somewhere else and do it because nobody knows you. It's
We
in
have
other
plenty of
words, what I'm
rapists and
saying
murderers
is,
right
it's
here
a,
in the United. I don't get your point. Most rapists and murderers that were born in America do not go somewhere else. They do it in America.
uh, I'm not talking about here. Yeah, they do it in America, but they'll do it out on the road, like where they're not known. You're not going to do it like if you're in a community, for example, and you're a known offender or whatever. The community knows, for generalization part, they know who you are, so they're watching you. They have their eye on you. Does that make sense? And then
Have
now,
you
if I
been to
go move over
Chicago?
here,
You guys talk about Chicago all the time. All the murders that
yeah,
happen
I
in
live.
Chicago, that's people in those communities. They're not coming from St. Louis to do that.
Yes, actually, I lived in Chicago back in
Right.
2012. I stayed in the suburb. Yeah, I stayed in the
Okay.
suburbs of
I lived
Chicago.
on the south
Uh,
side in the city, and I can tell you in Chicago, the people committing felonies are not coming from other cities. They live in those communities where they're doing that.
you really don't know that. All right, so in some of the communities, yeah, that they will break the law within the community, but they're that's usually affiliated with some sort of gang or whatever, some club or something like that, like a motorcycle club or something like that, and they're doing whatever their club wants them to do in their area. But I'm talking about like just somebody who is not wanting to, they get away from it, as far as they're getting away from that club to get the eye off them to go over here and actually do it and then get their pleasure, or whatever they get out of it. I don't know
Okay.
what they get out of
Yeah.
it because I don't do it.
Okay. Yeah, we okay, fair enough. We'll just agree to disagree on that. In my opinion, I don't. Regardless of what socioeconomic background you are, or where you come from, or what skin color you are, you tend to commit crimes in your area. I mean, occasionally somebody may drive across the country and commit a crime somewhere else, but it's usually you commit crimes within 40, 50 miles of where you live at. That's where most of the crimes are committed. So we have a different viewpoint on that.
In other words, what I'm saying is the environment. What's accessible. If if it's not accessible, you're not going to do it. Within, I don't care where you are.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. All right. Well, listen, I got to move the program on, man. I appreciate you coming through.
All right, have a good one, man.
Absolutely. Welcome back anytime. Listen, we don't always have to agree. Like I said, at the end of the day, I appreciate being able to have civilized dialogue, particularly with MAGA. This is definitely a MAGA friendly audience, but liberals are welcome here all day, every day. Go back to the box. So I'm asking the question, why the hell are we so divided? And is there a solution? Or better yet, who the hell is to blame for all of this? Is it one man? Is it one group? Is it one era? Looking at the box real quick, or the comments real quick. I don't claim him. Who's it? What the hell was he talking about, though? Oh my God. You didn't understand my previous caller. Okay, I'm going to leave that alone. Looking at the comments. And some I assume are good people. I like that. Hate it when simple-minded people try to explain stuff. Is that meant for me or my guest? Donald Trump led our division in America. That is a very common analogy and analysis, rather. I'm thinking of very common analysis. But there are plenty of people that believe it started with Obama. Some might even suggest Bush. The Biden crime family is evil. Okay, the media in protesters. Well, no denying, before I go to the box, I'll be in the box in a second. No denying the media has a lot to do with division because they paint the worst stories on the news. However, they're not necessarily always lying. You could put George Floyd's picture on TV or his life being taken on television all day, every day, and it's going to cause division. But it's not a fib. You're not making that up. That actually happened. You can put January 6th and those events on television all day, every day, like CNN currently does, and it'll cause a lot of division towards MAGA. But at the end of the day, that happened. They're not making it up. They're just showing it a lot. All right, going back to the box, Dynamite 420. What's your Dynamite 420? See what's on your mind. Dynamite, talk to me.
What's going on, man?
No. Now, once again, you're on here, but I don't see you, so I don't know if the live went dark or something because this happened before.
Yeah.
Which one division though?
Actually, I kind of put it on the government, really. So here's my little history lesson. We go back into the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. We know the United States was a racist country then. North and South didn't matter. Okay,
That ain't
so
what they were saying then, though. They weren't admitting it back then. They were denying it back in that time too. But go ahead.
but well, we know different. So
Right.
we fast forward, and the black community is starting to progress and get the rights that they should have been bestowed several hundred years ago. And then the government says, we can't keep them under control. To keep them under control, we're going to have to destroy the family unit. So that's when I personally, this is my own opinion, believe that the U.S. government stepped in and actually broke up the black family, and now they're doing it to the white family.
How so? What methods did they use? We'll start with black and we'll continue to white. But what methods did they use to break up the black family? Doing it.
So my way I figure it is they actually made it more monetarily acceptable for a woman to have children out of wedlock and get government assistance. Now they're doing it to the white community the same exact way. Look at our divorce rate. Look at our child. Look at how many families have the man or the father in the family anymore. You see what I'm saying?
And I
That's
agree with that. I think I've said it. Well, obviously we know it's starting from the black side, and I'll continue to the white side. But starting from the black side, we know that they did have rules in place where a struggling mom could not get welfare if the dad was in the house. So that led to dad being put out the house. And you are also correct with the white side of things is that it has been financially advantageous in a lot of cases to not work on strengthening your marriage. I can leave him and take half of his money. So yeah, I think you're hitting some points, but I'll let you continue.
So that's my own personal opinion. And now that they see that they can keep control, if they can make me hate you because of the way you look, and now they're all over. Because if you and I get together, see, and wish each other success, even though we disagree on a lot of things, if we both would agree that they are the problem and they need to be reduced in their numbers, 60% of the United States works for the federal government in one way or another.
I've never
My
heard
entire
60%.
in one way or another, whether it be defense contractors or whatever, my entire family does. So
But
And
let me ask
that's
you
the
this
only.
in regards to a comment. It's Mark in the comment said, but how can they make you hate people?
Well, I don't think they're making people hate people. They're just putting out a little bit of information, making me think that you're getting something for nothing, and I'm not entitled to the same thing.
Wow,
That
that is
that
excellent.
creates some
I
jealousy.
don't have a lot of. I mean, you're saying a lot of things I've said myself. That's excellent. Shit. How do we roll this back? How do we stop this or prevent it from getting worse?
Well, no, that's something that you and I got to talk about, not them. When I say them, it's all the alphabet groups. I mean, because it's you, you and I are the ones that have to be friends, and they don't have to like it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's I grew up in South Alabama. I remember the '80s when racism was still fairly open. It was not uncommon for me to hear, and even as a child, say a lot of racial slurs right there in front of anybody who was in a convenience store.
What state
And
did?
as we
What state you grew up in, if I might ask?
South Alabama.
Oh shit.
Yeah, yeah. So, here's one of the things that I absolutely hate is, sure, I grew up, hearing those things all the time, saying those things without any question, because it was socially acceptable then. See, now it's not socially acceptable, and we don't generally do that, but we're still
Right.
held to that same standard. You can't hold somebody to a standard several years ago today, because if 200 years from now they look at us and hold us to the standard that they have, we're going to fail.
Yeah, but well, South Alabama is has always been in terms of racial equality. They have always been behind the curve. I mean, there are plenty of folks who believe that if it was not for the Civil Rights Act, they would still be segregating and Jim Crow like down there today. So when you said South Alabama, I'm like, oh shit, yeah, that makes total sense.
It does, but I'm also going to tell you that I've been around the world 37 times. I've lived in China, lived in Japan. Just I've been around. I lived in Ohio for several years, and they are not. Well, I'm going to go back to Ohio, Georgia, a couple of other places I've lived. They're not, without fault either. We got a bad rep because this was the capital of the Confederacy, and you see what I'm saying. So, being the capital of the Confederacy, you're kind of the leader. And
So
growing
let
up
me
here,
ask you let me ask you your humble opinion, and you can go anywhere which you want. Like I said, I don't have an issue with free speech, so whatever your opinion is, you're entitled to it and always welcome on my show. But when you see being from Alabama, you see somebody driving down the street with a Confederate flag, waving it proudly. I'm not talking about a bumper sticker. I'm talking about a big ass stick with a huge flag flying behind it on a pickup truck. What is the first thought that come to your mind?
well, honestly, me personally, being who I am, being a white guy, I probably don't pay any attention to it. But I will say this: I believe, you know, that we get the actual meaning by what most people fly it wrong. Okay, so in the day during the Civil War, that flag meant that we were doing something different. And most of the people, I'm not saying all of them, because we do know that there are racists that will use that flag for their agenda. But for the majority,
And
it's
go ahead. I got a secondary question. I'll let you finish that one. But also, in regards to racists using that flag for their agenda, why do you think they adopted that symbol so prominently to use?
well, that's because that's what it's been tied to since its conception, really. That's my own personal opinion. Right, wrong,
Okay.
or indifferent. That's what I believe about it. But going to the people that do generally fly it, and this is from a guy that obviously doesn't have a problem walking up into a yard where it's on a flagpole, is that these people are nonconformists. They're not necessarily racist. They're just nonconformists in general. Now, I do understand that if you were to break down and your phone don't work, and you walking down the road and you see two houses, one across the street from the other, one has a Confederate flag. I mean, I do understand how you could take that as a warning not to come here.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
You
so
got to think.
You got to think. I understand folks talking about pride and heritage. When they say they fly it because of their heritage, they're generally talking about stuff that happened in the 1700s and during the Civil War era and before. But when you look at the usage of that flag in America for the last 150 years, yeah, it's almost always been in conjunction with racism. Because anybody who's flying it now, when they give you a positive reason why they're flying it, they're talking about stuff that happened in the 1700s. They're not talking about, all of these folks that have been flying it for reasons of intolerance since. So, yeah, when I see it, I don't think about the 1700s. I think about the 1900s and the 2000s when it's being used more recently as a symbol of hate.
And I can understand that, and I'll give you a personal story about it. So I actually used to have one hanging in my bar room, and I had a black friend that came over, and he would not come back. And I asked him, well, hey, man, I keep inviting you. And he goes, that just makes me uncomfortable. So, me wanting to welcome everybody into my house, I went and took it down and have never flown it again. As a matter of fact, I think I threw it out. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
Because I want you to feel welcome in my house, and if that doesn't make you feel welcome, then I really don't need it. Because at the end of the day, all it means is I'm just a nonconformist, and I don't have to show it to you. I just do it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I would say this, and I've said it before on my broadcast. I don't believe everyone flying the Confederate flag is racist because there's some African Americans that have flown it. I mean, there's a picture of Ludacris, the
Mm-hmm.
rapper, flying it. So I
No, I
don't
mean,
believe that every person flying a Confederate flag is racist. However, I will say at the very least, it's insensitive because you know what it means, and it'll be like flying the swastika in honor of your ancestor that fought in World War II. Appreciate the hat and mustache, thank you. But if you're a German American and you had a father or grandfather that fought in World War II, and you just wanted to fly the swastika in honor of your veteran grandfather, that wouldn't be acceptable. So, and you would know that flying that flag is insensitive to the Jewish community, insensitive to virtually every damn body in Eastern Europe, et cetera, et cetera. So I say it at the very least it's insensitive, and at the worst it's racist. Because you don't fly that flag without knowing that it has a huge amount of controversy behind it. Appreciate those hats. Much love to you guys. You get what I'm saying?
I totally understand what you're saying, but we have actually elected presidents that have used it in their campaign as well.
Well, we elected presidents that own slaves. We got a bad history.
I'm talking about Bill Clinton and Jimmy Carter,
Oh, yeah,
in recent years.
well, like you said,
So
in Alabama, racism was still open as late as the 1980s. So
it
our
really was.
history is not as far back as someone like us to believe.
But that's kind of my take on the Confederate flag. Is it's not as I'm gonna tell you this. So most people believe that the United States is a democracy, and they're wrong. So a democracy is actually a very dangerous form of government, which is actually called an oligarchy, which means majority rule. So 50% plus one will rule what anybody else does. The majority, okay? We're actually a republic, which means everyone has the same rights. Theoretically, we can argue that one all day long.
Yeah.
So if the United States was as racist as we think it is, or we have said it is, and the white people have 60% of the vote, I think we'd know exactly how racist the United States is.
Well, you're talking about from a government standpoint, though. I would
Absolutely.
suggest, yeah, since the Civil Rights Act of 1964, racism in government, in my opinion, and I understand a lot of my liberal folks might disagree, but racism in government, with the exception of the police, is at an all-time low. Most of the racism, I believe, exists among the citizens. I'm not going to rent a house to you. I'm not going to hire you, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to call the police because you're walking through my neighborhood. I believe it's more of that. So if you are African American and you or minority of any type, and you end up being on an adverse side of racism, chances are, other than the police, it probably came from a citizen or some corporation as opposed to the government.
Well, you're right there, but I'm just saying, if the United States was actually a democracy, we would all have a vote. It wouldn't matter what the government did; we would have that vote. That's
Right.
why we elected our representatives to go represent us and proxy our vote, I guess. That's why
Okay,
we
I
need
get the point.
60% to change some things. That's why we have to have more than a majority,
I get your point.
75% on other things.
Yeah.
So,
I get your point. I see what, and I agree with that. Hey, good talk, man. Look, I got to move it on. Though I appreciate you coming through as usual. Um, you're welcome back anytime, man. Good talk.
all right, have a good day.
All right. And I would ask if you go ahead and click your box because you did not appear here. So I have no control over the cost. If you will, go ahead and drop out. I don't know what
All right.
I don't know what the app did. Okay. Going back. We got Brandon Bartels coming up. Okay. How many times are we going to repeat it? Goofy, when you say going to repeat, what do you mean? And by the way, folks, feel free to follow the channel. This is the type of content we have here. Civil dialogue. Nobody gets banned. This is one of those places where you can speak your opinion. Now, obviously, I don't have any power over the app or TikTok, but for the most part, your politics are not going to get you shamed or banned here. You're going to get a chance to come in the box, to give you time to get your point across, and we have civil dialogue. The only purpose it is that we are able to do more than they're doing in Washington because they don't talk. Here we do, even in a small corner of social media. Appreciate those glasses. Got your boy looking good. All right, Brandon Bartels. Let's see what's going on. What are the three branches of government? I think he would have knew that. Brandon, talk to me.
Hey, first off, man, I love the comments and you standing up for your duets and stuff that you have with other people, speaking the truth on the Black Lives Matter and standing up for criminals and all that. When it comes to it, and I'll touch bases on a few things other people have said. And you're black and I'm white. I'm from Texas, and me and you see eye to eye. And I'm not Democrat, Republic. I favor more Republic side now because of the way the Democrat Party has showed their corruption as of late, like especially with Biden and all this crap going on and the manipulation of the media and everything. But me and you are totally different races, and we see eye to eye on so much. That right there
you know,
is the
I
change in races
think,
itself.
I've said before, I think we agree as a people, as a society.
Yes,
I think we agree on more than we disagree.
You aren't looking at it as color. And for one, a lot of people. Let me say this, and I don't fly no Confederate flag or nothing like that. But do you know what it is the only flag in North America, South America, and all but two continents that they have a meaning of what the color of red stands for and symbolizes on the Confederate flag.
I've always thought the red meant blood.
The blood of
what
Christ.
Am I missing? Okay.
Blood. It represents the blood of Christ. So
if you operate under,
there's a lot of people that are.
Okay, wait. If you operate under a banner of separating church and state, why would you put the blood of Christ on your flag? That pretty much makes it so that you're talking about religion right on down to your flag.
See, look, we're not always right as individuals or people. We all make mistakes, but the Confederacy had good intentions. You already know. I know you are very. No, hang on. Let me finish. Hang on.
Go ahead.
I know you're very educated because I've already seen some of the stuff you've done and said, and you were right on in a lot of things. It wasn't intentional and motivated by actual slavery itself. That was part of the problem. But I mean, if you look at the numbers and you look at the truth. The Union was against it more, but it was a crutch to cripple the South when the South wanted secession on its own, and not just to get into the Civil War, but I see so many stupid people on TikTok that are asked these questions of who's the first president, how many presidents are there, how many states are there, and these kids they're 20, 30 years old and can't even answer these questions. But they're voting for our presidency. Like, you wonder where, and now it's it's media manipulated by a lot of stuff.
Okay,
They
let
don't
me
like.
let me get in here. I don't want you to. Okay, I don't want you to get too far ahead of me, so I can respond to some of this stuff. I gotta say first of all, I vehemently disagree with the problem that the Confederates were not as bad as you're talking about,
Well,
mainly
yeah, no.
because
I would just try to touch bases, and it's mainly on the red of the flag that it stands for the blood of Christ. So, and anybody listening on here can look that up. Like that was true, 100% fact. And then I noticed a lot of people on here, like man, y'all grow up, man. It's what's in the heart. It ain't don't matter
okay, well
what color
let me
you
just
are.
say
Because I
this.
see a
Okay,
lot of people making racist comments on here,
okay,
and
okay.
there's no
Okay.
call for that. Like,
All right. Well, let me just say this in regard because you mentioned that they were fighting for things. Slavery obviously wasn't the main reason, but there were other reasons. I will
yes,
just
yes,
say,
and that was
okay,
a good reason. There's nothing wrong with it. It should have been done a
okay,
long time ago.
all right. Well, let me say it like this because I personally believe slavery was the main reason, but I'm not. We're not going to debate that. I'm just going to say this: regardless of what they were fighting for, they clearly had the worst intentions for black people because even after they lost the war, it's pretty obvious that they had the worst intentions in mind for African Americans. I don't care if they were fighting
Yes,
for
and
the
that's what I
right to
was. That's why
breathe.
I said people have faults. They make bad decisions. It's not. I mean, and it's so sad to say, but admitting it for the faults of our ancestors, black and white, like they were wrong because they valued the black life less than what it should be valued because all lives are equal. Period.
Right,
That's like I can't
right.
stand seeing the Black Lives Matter because if you do a White Lives Matter, it's wrong. But if you do a Hispanic Lives Matter, it's wrong. That is segregation itself. It's all lives matter. That's what it should be,
Well,
and
why do
everybody
you why
standing
do
up for
you
what's
think
right.
okay when they fly the Black Lives Matter flag, why do you think they're flying it? Just because they're trying to be better than other races?
No, nothing like that. But just like the duets in the comments and stuff you've made, I agree exactly. Majority like in oh boy, hey, I got all my dogs in here. Oh boy was right. We are based on a republic when we should be a democracy, and just like the and nobody take this the wrong way me saying this, but like LGBTQ, all this, it is not for the majority of their benefit. It is for the few in their groups that take advantage of. And when the government sees that, the guy that was just on here, he's right, and y'all were both right on what y'all were talking about. Y'all just like the guy before this guy, the white straight white or whatever. Like, there's a lot of people that move to especially metro areas that they create crime because they're not from there. I know what he was saying, and you're right
Okay.
because the majority of people born and raised
Okay,
there,
wait.
that's where they commit
Hang
their
on a second.
crimes.
Let me rein it in because you're covering a host of topics, and
Yeah, I know. I'm
I'm,
sorry. There's
I'm
just
not
a
gonna be
bunch of
to, yeah,
stuff
and
that.
I'm not gonna be able to keep up with you when you're moving too
Yeah,
you're too
I know.
broad. But let's go to the Black Lives Matter thing because you said you can't stand it because every life should matter and it looks like it's being racist. Why do you think that they're even flying a Black Lives Matter flags and saying Black Lives Matter? What do you think
Well,
is making them say that?
there's few in that are actually for the right movement. But like you've seen and you've said and you've agreed on, just like the incident that just happened. Oh boy, come in there, was shooting the house up and almost killed the woman and her two kids. And she stood up and confronted the Black Lives Matter on it, how they're protesting for a criminal that was trying to kill this woman and her kids, and the cop shot her. A lot of it is, I mean, because there's bad in all. A lot of it is the people that have hate, and they're standing up and crying out racism. They're
Yeah,
crying
but
out
what
racism
I'm
when
trying to
they're not
let's take
speaking
the
for racism in the righteous sense.
okay, let's take the ones you think that are saying it for the right reason. Why do you think they're saying that?
Well, because there is wrong and there is corruption in law enforcement. There is. There's no doubt about that. I mean, I'm white and I can get pulled over and get harassed for no fucking reason. I've gotten taken to jail for something I didn't do that the dude riding with me told him it was his alcohol. I went to jail for it. The cop
Okay,
turned around
so
and lied
but
with 4
so
witnesses. Like,
yeah, but
so
yeah,
in
but the
when
question I'm
when you
asking
are
you,
black, you have been oppressed for years. So I mean, you have a right to speak out, but we shouldn't close our eyes and have a blind eye to crime and corruption going on and try to justify that.
well, and I'm not trying. What I'm asking you though is if you are admitting that African Americans get the short end of the stick with law enforcement, and then when they try to speak up and say something about it, if you respond with all lives matter, wouldn't their message be diluted in the works? If they're trying to point out that we're being treated differently than everybody else, and you step up and say, "Well, all lives matter," wouldn't that erase any spotlight that they're trying to place on what they're talking about?
Well, no, and it's really the times that they stand up for people that are wrong, that are in the wrong, that committed crimes, that shot at the cops before they caught it on video, that it's on
Yeah.
body cam and on dash cam. You know what
You're
I'm saying?
talking about
Those, just
Jalen
like
Walker. Yeah, you're talking about Jalen Walker.
the specific circumstances like you've seen and you've announced and addressed are what I'm talking about. You can't stand up
Okay.
for every situation because not every situation is right. Now,
Right.
George Floyd, I mean, he had a rap sheet a mile long. I've got a rap sheet. I've been to TDC in Texas 3 times. I'm a fuck up. Now I own my own business. I'm successful. Like, so I relate. And so anybody can say, you know, oh, the penitentiary system and stuff like that, man, it's the choices you make. But it's if we're gonna stand up as a unity and you want all racists standing up for black people, they're not gonna do it when a person's in the wrong. Like, and
Well,
I'm not saying George Floyd.
wait a minute. Here's the problem. Wait
Overly
a minute.
excessive with George Floyd.
Okay, and that's the point is that we don't want the police to get into the position where they know as long as I can show that this guy had a long rap sheet and he's a bad guy, I can get away with beating the shit out of him or killing him. You don't want to get them into that position.
It's gotta be civilian control. We have to stand together, completely together, and not it's. And when I said that about the democracy and republic, the republic is because we've allowed the few to control this, to control our government, our Congress, and our people as a whole. Like,
Right.
you can't do that because the few are the corrupt. Like, it's not the majority of the black communities that are standing up, the mothers that are trying to raise their kids when they don't have fathers, and that's not the stereotype, and it's not the single white mothers that are doing the same thing. Like, they're the people that are standing up for what's right. But you know, those are the majority of the voices should be heard. When you allow a few over a majority to rule, and I don't mean in race, I mean in righteousness and what's right and what you feel from your heart. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Like, I've seen so much. It's hard for me to explain, and
Well,
just like on here, I've seen people say white people, black people, like nonstop on the comments, and like, whether y'all realize that, and not you, sir, but whether y'all comment and realize that or not, that is racism. If you speak on somebody, now when you're making a topic, and you have to have that description to get people to understand, then that's different. But when you speak on somebody by the color of their skin, that is racism. Whether you have a hate
I
in your heart,
always bring up
like,
the point. So when Trump suggested banning all Muslims from coming into the country, do you think that was racist?
well, I'll tell you that. I'll tell you this, and that is when a majority suffered over the minority, because the minority of Muslims, the minority, like the
Yeah, but
few,
I'm not asking you. I'm asking you, is it racist though? I get what you're saying. The majority of them are going to pay the price. That's how all racism works. Is that the majority suffered?
No. I mean, the majority of Muslims are good, but he was trying to prevent the few of the bad.
He didn't say nothing about good or bad. He said banning all of them.
No. Yeah, I know. Well, and that's the government manipulation of trying to get people to see and swing and sway one side.
The question I'm asking you is it racist?
Well, I won't say racist. I'll say this: it's prejudice. It's not racist because Muslims are not a color.
All right.
They're not
Okay.
a race. You see, like
All right.
I mean, and it is totally prejudice, yes, because
Okay.
you're speaking against a race. I mean, not a race, a religion, and I mean, America is based on the right of freedom of religion. That was one of the foremost principles of our Constitution is for you to
Well,
have the
I will
right
just
to.
say I don't think there's any you don't get any high ground from saying I'm not racist, I'm prejudiced. It's still just as bad. But look, I got to move it on,
Yeah,
man. I
yeah,
appreciate it. I got to move it on.
yeah. Let me say this one thing though. One last thing. All right,
Wrap it up.
now
Give you 10 seconds.
when 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 we all find a common ground and understand that racism is taught, it's not born. That's the primary thing. Is when you teach your kids because the hate you have, or the ignorance, or the stupidity, or the idiocracy, like parents, you have the right to change this yourself. You have kids, you teach them to love everybody for every color, for every nationality, for every religion. That's where it changes. And thank you. And I
Fair
love
point.
watching and seeing all your stuff.
All right. Absolutely a pleasure to have you here. Welcome back anytime.
You have a
man.
good day.
Thanks for coming through.
All right.
You
Bye.
too. All right. Look at
And I like he said his prejudice. I'm fine with that because he's right. Being Muslim is not a religion. Now, he didn't say a total and complete ban on all Arabs entering the country. He said Muslims. But at the end of the day, let's be clear, the overwhelming majority of Arabs are Muslim. So it's not quite one and the same, but it's pretty damn close. It's pretty damn close. But let me go ahead and look in the comments. Somebody says, stop being a Sambo. I will plead ignorance because I have no clue what the hell that even is. When they say Muslim, they just mean brown people. There's a lot of the people from Greece are brown. I mean, there's a lot of brown people, Samoans. I mean, Pacific Islanders. I won't go as far as saying brown people. I would say Middle Easterners. Now, I saw his comment as racist. I like how the previous caller said prejudice. That actually is more technically correct. But when you think of Muslims, you're not thinking of Louis Farrakhan. You're thinking of Middle Easterners. You're thinking of people that are from the Middle East. So that's the way I took his comment. But technically, it's not racist. It's prejudice. Looking in the rebuilding life's gardens. Let me go back to
the way, folks. Get your boy up to 15,000 likes. You guys have been wonderful. Like I said, MAGA friendly audience. That's who I generally speak to. Not a problem. Liberals welcome too. Rebuilding. Talk to me.
How's it going?
Oh, it's going pretty good. We're talking about division, man. What the hell? The country is divided as hell. Nobody denies that. Is there a solution? And where did it come from? Is it an individual? Is it a group of people? Where did all the division in this country come from? Where's the origin of it is what I'm asking. Did I lose you on that? Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, loud and clear. Go ahead.
So, I think it comes from a lot of things. It's always whenever we're bringing something up, and I'm not trying to attack you, the handsome liberal, but when you bring up the Middle Eastern ban,
okay,
what we have to realize is there's half the country that was for that.
Well, but there's a lot of country that are for banning LGBT marriage. There's a whole the country has a history of being in favor of segregation and a bunch of other horrible stuff.
Well, you're bringing in segregation. If we talk about gay marriage, I'm a right-leaning person. I have no reason against that. What conservatives argued, by the way, when gay marriage was happening, right, was that it wasn't going to stop there. That was the whole point. They stated, we could have gay marriage, right, but it wasn't going to stop there. This is
You
a
know,
fact.
I'll
One thing
let you continue, but I just want to interrupt and say that's a good point you made because I used to call. I think Bill O'Reilly left radio, not the TV, but he left radio in 2009, and I used to debate with Bill O'Reilly all the time, and he was saying the same thing that if you allow gays to get married, next people are going to want to marry their dogs and all of this other crazy stuff. And I was trying to be professional or polite with him. I thought that was a bunch of crap. But are you saying that also that they believe that if you let a person marry same sex, it's going to morph into something else? Is that what you're saying?
Well, naturally, it already has. I mean, let's be honest. I'm not sure if you've seen this video, but there's a video of Libs of TikTok, right? I'm sure you've heard of that channel. A girl recently who literally calls herself and identifies as a cat, and her friends identify as cats, and they meow to each other in their own language. Okay, and like dead serious. Like, I mean, come on, and like we can talk about we can talk about all the other stuff, right? But it didn't stop, did it? Right? Like that train kept on rolling faster and faster, didn't it?
There's not a big outcry for people to marry cats. Come on now. You're
I'm not
using something that's extremely on the fringes of society.
people. There was an article years ago. This was 4 years ago. There was an article of someone who defined as a mechanic sexual or something like that, where they were attracted to machines, and any sound of a machine would get them off. Right?
If I
Why do I? No,
wait a minute. If I
it's
seen thousands of people, like when you see LGBT protesters in pride parades, it's literally thousands of parades all over the country. If I seen numbers like that trying to marry a tractor, then I would agree with you. But you're countering with stuff that represents such a incredibly minute minority of people. I have never even heard of some of this stuff.
it's not minute anymore though, and so I would say it used to be, but it's not. There's actually, I think it's like last time I looked at it, it's five. It used to be 1 or 2% of the country that fell into the LGBTQ umbrella, and just over the past 5 years, it's grown from that 1 to 2% upwards of 5 to 6%. And this is because it's being promoted. I actually feel like I could be wrong, right? Based upon the research I've done, based upon articles that I've read, it's because it's being openly promoted for people to have I'm not trying to judge people, but just weirder and weirder ideas. And like there's one lady who identified as a demon sexual. They refer to themselves as demon and demon self, right? Like, and why do I care? Someone asked me in the comments, like, I don't really
And I was
care.
going to ask you that. That's a real good question. If we
Yeah,
are the land of the free,
really
who can? I
care.
mean, if your neighbor wants to marry a book, a good point. Why do you even care about that?
There's only the brief sense. So the only reason, like, people live your best life, do whatever you want. The reason I care is I live in society, right? We live in American society, right? So if
Okay.
we know there's a tear at the fabric of our society, right, which is what I consider this, right? It's a tear that's growing larger and larger, right? This is also part of the
How is
divide,
it a
right?
tear though? If I marry a book, how does that tear at our society?
I'm about to get to some real things. That's what I was about to
Okay.
quantify.
All
So
right.
when
Talk to me. Okay.
I know I'm doing like extreme minute, new genders or whatever you want to identify yourself as, right? But when the majority of the LGBTQ and the left are coming and saying you need to refer to me as X, what is that? That's an infringement on my First Amendment rights. All right, I can continue down this line, right? They put up bills to Congress where if you deny a date from a trans person, it would be illegal and you could actually face jail time. That was real. That happened.
No.
Yes,
No.
it got denied. It didn't go anywhere. But just the fact that it was put up, this is why I care, right? Because it's always this. It's the big ask, right? But once the big ask passed and you get the small one, you just move an inch or two forward, right? And then you do another big ask, right? And then we're like, no, that's crazy. And then you move another inch and two forward, right? So you're still getting towards where you want to go. You're just doing it slower because you're throwing out
So
something that's
what
insane.
what you're pointing to is if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile.
Yes,
So let me ask you this question, and,
but
and I, I
I wanted
understand.
to pull back quick. I wanted to pull back because I wanted to go to the more reasonable things, right, on this divide. And what the conversation we never have, right? And this is the way I see it painted. And I'm not stating you, but like a lot of people on the left always accuse right-leaning people of being bigoted because they're not respecting LGBTQ rights.
Right.
We can claim that they're evil because they're pro Second Amendment, but they're anti-abortion, right? Like we can go through whatever topics, right? But this is why I said there's half of this country, right? Half that has beliefs, and the conversation is always you're this, right, to this half of the people. And honestly,
Okay.
I want my half, because it's gotten to this point. I want us to start coming back and start saying no, and start saying no, you're bigoted because you're not respecting our beliefs.
Okay,
We've
let
had
me
these
get in here though. This is what I want to. Okay, but I don't want
for
you to get
hundreds
too.
of years.
Hold on, I don't want you to get too far ahead of me. That's why I only want you to say so much.
Yeah,
Otherwise, I'll forget if you talk too long.
yeah, no,
But let me
if I
say
may,
this in regards to giving them an inch and they'll take a mile. They just rolled back Roe versus Wade, and they're saying it's not banning abortion; it's just giving the states rights back. Do you understand people that believe they're headed toward a national abortion ban under that same premise that if you give them an inch, whereas it used to be legal to have an abortion in all 50 states, you've given them an inch, so now it's only legal in 25 states or so. If you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. Do you understand it from that aspect as well?
100%. And you know why that happened? Because we
Why?
gave them an inch.
Yeah,
Let me
that's a
quantify this.
good rebuttal. I know where you're going with that. Abortion on demand.
Yeah. So it used to be
Yeah.
safe, legal, and I'll point
Yeah.
out one simple fact. It's not safe, legal, and rare since 1973 when it was, or no, it was 72 when it was passed, to 2022. Over the past 50 years that it's been legal, 63.5 million babies. That's not safe, legal, and rare.
No.
On average, 1.5 million a year.
So let me
It
let me
went
ask you
from
this then. So if a woman gets pregnant just from irresponsible sex, her life is fine. She just from irresponsible sex when she wants to abort the kid, and you say no, and she does it, hanger, pills, drugs, or whatever, illegally, do you think she should be required to serve time? Should she be punished criminally for doing that?
if she aborts her baby by herself. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, if she uses like I said, she goes and wants to abort the kid. I don't have money, or I'm about to go to college. I'm not ready
Right.
to do this. I'm not ready to be a parent. And the system tells her you cannot do this. So she does it herself. Let's say she doesn't have $5,000 to go 3 states over to do it. So she does it herself. Should she be punished criminally for that?
Well, you're not going to like the answer to this, but I believe it's a life at conception. So yes. So if I murder
Okay.
someone today, I should be right.
So you think she should get a murder rap?
I don't think first degree, but definitely at a bare minimum homicide.
Okay. So she's going to probably spend quite a bit of
And
time
let
in
me
prison
quantify
because of that.
that, because currently under law, as it exists right now in most states, if a man were to stab a pregnant woman, right, and kill the baby and the woman, that's double homicide.
Yeah, that is true. And I would say that states who have passed those laws, and it's not all red states, there are liberal states that actually will charge a criminal or a man or whoever with double homicide. I will say that they created a stepping stone to what you're talking about because, yeah, if it's a life or if it's not a life, it has to be that way across the board. So when you start saying if a
Right.
criminal does it, it's a life, but if the mother does it, it's not. It does create a gray area. I'm not a fan of charging a mom with homicide. I'm certainly not a fan of that, but I get your point. I'm just trying to figure out though.
So, but this is where I wanted to pull it back, and I'm going to try to make it as simple as possible. What's happening here is one side has been attacking the other because conservatives conserve values, right? Let's be honest. That's what conservatives are, right?
There
We
what?
conserve values. Conservatives tend to protect traditional values, right? Like
Yes,
we're strong
I believe
Second Amendment.
that. I
Yeah,
believe I believe they want to keep the country traditional. Yes.
yeah, yeah. Progressives are wanting to change it, right? People on the left, right?
Yes. Evolve. Evolution.
Right. Now, I think evolving is good to a certain point, but even history has taught us once you push too far, there's always a pendulum, right?
Okay.
If you too far, and I think that's what you're seeing right now. And I think a lot of people don't see it because they're messing with our kids. Like we have moms that don't even normally participate in politics, right? But now are participating in politics because they're messing with their kids in schools.
Okay, I don't get that. How? Elaborate. Give me an example of that.
Trans story time. That's another lives of TikTok, and you can. Everyone can keep on saying this is anecdotal, but once you cross the point where there's hundreds of videos and there's hundreds of articles talking about grown men that are trans that don't wear underwear and go into the classroom and spread their legs and read a children's book to the kids, that happened. That's real. Happened multiple times in multiple schools. Once the FBI labels parents as terrorists for getting involved in PTA meetings and stating that their school board is overstepping with the pro-LGBTQ agenda and what they're teaching, right? And that's happening all over the country.
I don't. You're talking. I'm not aware of any of this stuff. I would have to see some kind of evidence. I mean, you're talking about some pretty raw stuff.
Yeah. West Virginia, that literally happened. There was a father who also got arrested because there was an LGBTQ kid who identified as a female who entered a bathroom not only once but twice and raped two different girls. I'm sorry, raped hard. I'm not trying to.
Let me say this. Let me just say this real quick. I really, because we do it on our side too. I hate when we take one or two examples and make it sound like a whole community.
But my point is, through this list, it's not one or two.
It's pretty rare. I mean, it's something that's rare enough that it hasn't even happened in all 50 states. It's pretty rare.
What's not rare at all is one of the examples I provided, the pro-LGBTQ agenda. Biden actually came out and stated it needs to be taught federally in every school. That's not rare. That's the government stating this needs to be taught, and they're actually handing out books in schools of pornographic cartoon images of kids blowing each other.
I'm going to tell you flat out, until I see that, I don't believe that. Kids committing fellatio on each other.
I swear I will send them to you.
Yeah. Well, my email address is on my page. I need to, because this is very similar. I had a guest. I'm not listening. I'm gonna tell you until I see it. I have a difficult time believing it. But if you show it to me, not only will I admit it, I'll actually do a video on that. That's horrible. This reminds me when we've had some abortion debates. I've had people come on here, and I had a woman tell me that the liberals are trying to pass laws that allowed you to abort a child 30 days after it was born. To abort a 1-month-old. So I need to see this kind of stuff.
Well, it wasn't abort. So they described it wrong to you. What the original law was before they changed it, because there was an uproar in California, that was 30 days after birth, the coroner would no longer investigate the cause of the baby's death. So it could be thrown into a dumpster, or it could have been thrown off a ledge, right? Then if they were to find the baby, I know I'm throwing out extremes here, right? But a mother could smother her baby, right? That's another example, right? And normally they would investigate that to see the cause of death of the baby, right? But what they put in the law was that you will not investigate the baby's death up to 30 days after it is born. And then they changed.
So in other words, if a woman had a baby in California and she decapitated it right in front of the police, they're not going to investigate that or anything.
Well, I'm sure if there's something that gruesome, I mean, we would have to go to what are they actually going to press her with, like, because the law's in the books if it had passed. But it is a fact that it was in there that the coroner would not investigate.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you just personally, if a doctor called the police and stated our test showed this baby is loaded with barbiturates or was intentionally killed, and it's 20 days old, there's no way I'm going to believe the police would be like, well, we're not going to really investigate that. I have a hard time believing that.
That's why it was so insane, and that's why there was such an uproar, and it was actually overturned.
Yeah, I'd have to see some evidence of if any doctor or anybody suggesting that we knew this baby the life of this child was taken by the mom, and the law refused to do anything about it. I'd have to see that. That just sounds
Well,
so
once
far out
again,
there.
I think that technically, if it's something extremely gruesome, the police could have gotten involved.
I'm
I'm
not
stating
talking
the bill
about
said
gruesome. I mean,
no,
just
no,
say
no,
the
no, no,
baby
no.
was shaken.
Listen,
I'm just saying, let's say the
yes.
baby was shaken
Baby,
to death.
so let's say a baby's taken to a hospital, right? Shaken to death, right?
Right.
After the baby is confirmed dead, it goes to the coroner, right? Now the
Okay.
coroner, this is the process and how it works, right? The coroner would investigate the cause of the baby's death and say, this baby was shaken to death, or this baby was suffocated, or this baby was drowned, right?
They have a duty to report that too.
The whole bill was to make it illegal for the coroner to
Oh.
report the cause of death and investigate the cause of death and refer it to the police. Now, if the police saw a woman decapitate her baby in front of them, 100% I think they would still charge it. You know, that's a gruesome event. I'm just stating what was in the bill, and I'm stating what was. I'm not.
Well, I will just say this: you can, if we want to just go by somebody submitting a ridiculous bill, that happens all over America. Somebody probably submitted a bill saying they want to have 10 wives. I mean, there are crazy bills all the time, but you can't pin that on the entire liberal party like a lot of Republicans try to do. Most liberals, 99% of liberals are not going to support something crazy like that. But the Republican Party will make it, the Republican Party makes it sound like all liberals are in favor of something like that.
I don't blame most liberal people for the most part. There are some that are just like the far right? So there's some that exist, right? I blame the politicians and also a lot of these organizations that bring forth these bills and put the money into these bills to go up for legislation. I don't blame regular people because, like you said, which I'll give you the proof to this, you would disagree on it. You would think it's insane based on a lot of the stuff I gave you. And people can call me a clown and like I'm insane and all that stuff. I'm just very well educated and I follow this stuff a lot. And just because you're not looking at another side of it doesn't mean it's not happening. It's sort of like let's
it's sort of like the January 6th hearings I talk about all the time. Just because you're not watching them does not mean they're not happening. I'll give you the last word, man. I do got to move it on, but go ahead.
Yeah. And here's another fact. I guess I'll leave on this fact, and this is why there's division. Since you brought up January 6th, all those people are being prosecuted. They've been put into jail for longer than a year. Most of them have not had fair representation and the right to a fair and speedy trial, right? But Stephen Colbert's crew that has lied and has proven they've lied, they didn't have any credentials and were let in. And one of the staff members inside the White House, because of his crew, his reporting crew, and how they were acting, called the national police to actually come because he actually felt like he was in danger. No charges. They entered illegally. No charges.
I get you. All right, man. Got to move it on.
So yeah, but no, I appreciate it, man. Anytime.
Absolutely. Talk to you next time.
In regards to folks who were arrested on January 6th and they're still in jail without due process, totally sounds wrong and unconstitutional to me. But do you realize how many Americans are serving time in jail right now without due process? That is extremely common. Not to mention folks who spend a lot of time in jail simply because they have no bail money. So, I mean, I'm not in favor of anybody having their rights violated, but what the folks that protested on January 6th are complaining about, they're not unique to that. I mean, seriously, you're in jail without due process. How many folks have been stopped and frisked or had their shit searched without their consent or against their consent? That's what our country does. They just happen to be a victim of the shit now, and they're realizing, you know what all them other folks been complaining about? It just happened to us now. All right, moving back into the box. Fast Pass. Let's see what's going on.
Patriot Act was another one. Patriot Act was really bad at that. And that's a George Bush piece of legislation. Talk to me, Fast Pass.
Yeah, that legislation's still enacted. That never was supposed to last this long.
And you hear the right always talk about we're for Constitution, and it's the liberals that want to take away your rights. And the Patriot Act is probably one of the most unconstitutional pieces of legislation in recent history.
Yeah, but don't blame that on just the right. That was pretty much across the aisle. I mean, he had, like you said, he had so much political capital, and people that lived in New York, especially. Man, he had so much capital
But we're gonna,
there.
but
That
he's the
wasn't
president.
just a right-sided
But
thing. That passed, I
It,
think.
does, it doesn't matter. I never look at the people below. At the end of the day, he is the president. He could have vetoed that. He is the president that pushed the Patriot Act, got it signed, and it is his bill. It's not the senators
Well, then the next
or the
president, then
congresspeople.
the presidents after that could have done something about it. So there's
Now
no
that's
there's
true.
no
Now that
excuse.
also is true.
There's
That
no
is
excuse.
true.
And the Department of Homeland Security was created because of that. And, and now he's going through an airline and all that. I always knew that was going to breed into something we were going to regret again, because we knee jerk so often, and we just have a knee jerk reaction. But the last guest there, I mean, some of those things I'm gonna have to question, and I'm fairly conservative, but I gotta question some of those things. Some things that happened in the arguments for and against abortion, they're all running the same course, and they seem to be the same arguments coming from the same sides, and having daughters and stuff. I was fortunate that I know of never to have to experience that with one of my children, but it's that argument what happened. And I just saw what Ginsburg even said that it overreached, because it was supposed to just be about woman's right to choose, and then it became, okay, where's the starting line, where's the stop line? Is it going to be at 10 weeks, at 12 weeks, at 3 months? And then some of them were all the way during the entire course. There was no restrictions in some states, and she never meant for that to be. And she's
But
on
here's
tape.
what I don't get. I understand Christianity. I grew up in the church. I understand wanting to protect the sanctity of life and not allow women to have abortion on demand. But the reason I'm pro-choice is because I believe the solution to what the right and the anti-abortion people are complaining about, I believe their solution is going to ultimately be worse than the problem. My last caller, for instance, was talking about women that try to abort the child themselves should get homicide charges. I don't see how that benefits society at all. And he's not going to be alone in that. He's not going to be alone in that mindset.
Well, what's wrong with this? I mean, what's wrong with this? Because this has been blasted completely. That they don't even want, the left does not want this to be a part of our society, and that is, counseling for keeping the child versus counseling for aborting the child. And you talk about pro-choice, where pro-choice is actually the choosing, and having all the information, because there are several people that said if I'd had somebody talk to me about this before, instead of my boyfriend or my parents or, the girl next door or Planned Parenthood. I mean, because now these counseling centers, I mean, I know, where I live is where Eric Rudolph lived, not far from here. And I met his brother. I actually met his brother, and I mean, I'm not knocking, but I'm not saying to no glory Eric Rudolph was a murderer, but man, you would have never picked
Let
that
me
family.
let me tell you, as opposed to counseling, if you really want to have more moms to be, potential mothers, if you really want them to actually choose the option of keeping their babies, as
Right.
opposed to giving them counseling, how about giving them more time off work when they have the child, or giving them help purchasing things for the child, or actually helping them with the kid other than telling them, pull yourself up by your own damn bootstraps, and leaving them hanging
That's
like
out
that.
there. That's out there. I mean, if you
But
need
it
it,
ain't
that's out there.
happening. It's
Well,
not
there is.
happening.
There's
They're
programs.
actually they
There's
they've actually passed more laws over the last generation or so to limit assistance to mothers with children, not expand it. They're limiting it. Most states now have laws that say, hold on. Most states now
I
have
don't know
laws that
I
say,
don't know
wait,
what
wait
you're
a minute,
talking about, but I know you
let
get
me
another
get the
tax
okay.
credit, you get WIC, you get
That ain't what I'm talking
some
about.
other
You're
advantages.
not hearing what I'm
But
saying. They have
okay,
passed. Wait a
what's your
minute.
point?
My point is, most states have now passed laws to severely limit how long a mother with a child can receive assistance at all. Most states it's like 3 or 4 years, and you have a life ban from receiving any more help. And that's happened in the last decade or so.
Well, what about what about how many children you have? Because I mean, goodness, I worked with a guy. He was Hispanic, but he had like 9 kids. I mean, big old van and everything, and
But
he had like
most
10
American,
children.
come on now, most American mothers don't have 9 kids. You're bringing up an extreme example.
Well, hey, I think that if you are financially in need, I think absolutely. But some of it's crossing the line to me, like Buttigieg getting 3 months of a maternity leave for the child. I'm not buying that, man, because there's
But
nothing that
you didn't
Buttigieg went
answer what I asked you
specifically.
though. You didn't answer what I asked you.
Well, you
What
didn't make a
about the
quote. You didn't quote me a program. Quote me something, a law. I don't know of a law that you're talking about. I'm trying to think of one, and I can't come up with one that
just
you're
go?
talking was
I will tell
passed.
you this. Here's the way to find out. Just simply go on Google and type
Hmm.
in lifetime ban on welfare. I mean, period. There's several states. I'll invite folks in the comments. Have you heard of anything about your particular state passing a law, particularly in red states, that impose a lifetime ban on how much welfare you can receive? Wisconsin, I think, limited it to 5 years. If a mom receives welfare for 5 years, that is it. It is a lifetime ban. She can never receive any more benefits. There are plenty of
Well,
states that have done that.
that's that's definitely to incentivize somebody from actually being able, because when they're 5, 6, face it, they go to school. Most kids do. If you're going to have a bunch of children and continually to collect welfare, that's not what we want either. Because as
That is
well as
true.
I do, we are now in the 4th generation of basically a semi-welfare state, and it's become a way of life to a lot of families. Their grandparents lived under the housing, and I'm not saying that there's not a sense, but it was never intended to be what it is, which is a way of life or an income. But they put bans on unemployment. You can only get in this state $4,500, and you can't get any more
Yeah,
unemployment.
but
So,
unemployment doesn't make you have children that you were originally trying not to bring into the world because you couldn't afford them.
well, if you don't want the child, I mean, there is adoption. My point is these people don't know this information. They don't know it. They go into a Planned Parenthood and it's definitely abortion. There's not a lot of counseling that goes the other way. There's just too many people that have worked and have come out of Planned Parenthood, and there's too many Planned Parenthoods that are closing or that are going to close down because of less abortions. That's their. I don't want it to be a business, and that's wrong. This part of it being a business, and it is. And why should one person who holds a moral objective against ending the life of a child in a mother's body, why is a person like that going to be required to have their taxpayer money pay for Planned Parenthood? So that's the part that a lot of the objections are coming from the right, is that why should they pay for something they're morally and not just a little bit objecting to? So,
Okay,
um,
let me say this real quick. I actually, while you were talking, Google lifetime limit on welfare, and here's what I got:
okay.
the temporary assistance for needy families law passed by Congress in 1996, which would have been under Clinton, said that cash assistance to be limited
Mm,
to no more than 5 years, 60 months over a lifetime. But states were allowed some
That was either
flexibility.
Clinton. That would have been
That's
the end of
Clinton. That's
Clinton. That
Bill
would have been the
Clinton.
that
That's
would have
Bill
been the
Clinton.
last. Yeah, the very last, right? Because that wasn't that his last year. No, wait a minute. No, nope. It was his middle term. It was right at the middle. Um, yeah, under Clinton. So how many months?
65 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
It's a long
No
time.
cash. That ends all cash assistance. No cash assistance after 5 years.
That's a
So
long time.
that was passed by Congress.
Yeah, that's a long time. That's 5 years to be on government assistance I mean, you're
But
not,
you have to take
kids
care of a
going.
kid for 18 years. 5
That's
years.
right.
What if you're on welfare for 2 years? You get a decent job and you lose your job. Maybe you're on welfare for another year. You get a job and you lose that job. You're on it for another year. You're out. You can't get anything more. If you lose a job again, you're asked out. That happens to people.
I don't know that I disagree with that because I think that's a huge incentive to to work, or A or B. It's a huge incentive not to get pregnant carelessly, get pregnant, because face it, it's all comes down to the causality, and the causality is a pregnancy of unprotected sex. I mean, face it, that's what sex does. It creates a child. So I don't know. 5 years is a long time, and if you know that going in, then in 5 years is that. I don't know. I don't know. I can completely disagree with that one,
And
my
see,
man. Because
this is why I say I believe the solution is worse than the problem, because you mentioned women having 8 and 9 kids and things like that. Even if you have a job, let's say you are irresponsible and you get pregnant 3 or 4 times. You wanted to abort the children, but the law says no, you're going to take care of. Okay, so you got 3 or 4 kids. Even if you get a job, you may find that that job is not enough to support you and your family. And with this 5 year ban, what do you do?
brother, I don't know. Bad choices have bad results, and you're still going to be able. There's still you're not cut off from from EBT or EDT. You're not cut off from some assistance. That child will probably be fed, or you're going to have a much reduced rent on a Section 8 housing in my state. Well, my point is, I don't think it was ever meant to be. Even with children, you can't incentivize carelessness, which is basically what that's doing. It's incentivizing
Yeah,
carelessness.
but
You can
you
fix
can't
that. You
incentivize
don't want those
carelessness.
children. You can have one children, then get fixed. You do it with your, you don't want 8 puppies running around. You fix your dog. You don't want 8 children running around the house. And hey, that's a measure of man's
Okay, so if you
responsibility as a
want her
woman.
to, okay,
That's as
but how
much
can
as a
you get?
man's
Wait a minute. How
responsibility
can you
too.
get fixed? How can you get fixed if you're against giving everybody health care?
Because hey, I don't think that's going to be. I don't. That's going to be a lot less expensive than raising 5 kids. I mean, I'm
Well,
sure that's you're not going to do it with a pocket knife. I know that,
well,
but
my
it's
point
a
is,
tough issue for a man to argue this point. It's a really difficult issue for a man to argue this point, but a man
I don't
doesn't.
think
This is
men
where
should be
equal
involved
rights
in it at all.
separate.
I
Well,
don't
it
think
is
men should be
difficult
involved
because
in it at all.
a woman can force fatherhood on a man by just getting pregnant. And there you are the dad. We're going to get a DNA test done. That's why, like I said, that's why every NBA rookie has that talk before the season starts about the women that are going to come out there. Not, hey, I'm not critiquing. Face it, it happens. Don't women start screaming and getting mad at me, because they all have that talk about, there's women that are going to intentionally get pregnant
Okay.
because they see you as a meal ticket for the rest of their lives. Take it. Who is it? How many children? I don't know if it's not LeBron James, but one of the athletes
I get your
recently
point.
had
Yeah, I
eight
get your
kids
point.
from 8 different
Yeah,
women. Now his
I
ass
get
should
your
be
point.
responsible for it. He goes sticks it in anything that's out there. You know what I'm saying? I
Right.
don't. I
Yeah,
don't.
I
I
get your
think
point.
there's got to be some
All right.
responsibility. But I
Okay.
appreciate talking. If you can move on, if you'd like.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. Well,
I wanted to make one quick comment about 52 Cent if he's on here the other day.
all right. Go ahead.
You was talking about walking down the sidewalk or something. I forget, man. But like I said, you can. What was he talking about? He went off
I
on
don't.
on a tangent, man. But anyway, I'll remember it next time I talk to you. But have a great
All right.
evening, man. I just enjoyed talking to you. I enjoyed it.
All
And
right, man. Appreciate it. Appreciate
good
it.
luck to you.
Okay.
Bye.
Who's in the NBA? You don't think he knows a single NBA player? Come on now. I wouldn't sleep with an NBA player, but he is right though. I didn't agree with most of the things he said, but he is right. There are plenty of women that do try to get impregnated by wealthy men. I mean, let's just be clear. The way our system is set up, if you get pregnant by a wealthy man, it can be akin to a lottery ticket. There's no denying it that is a fact. I mean, like I said, I didn't agree with most of the other things he said, but that is true. Is that you get pregnant by a guy, yeah, you shouldn't have had sex with me, because from that point on, I believe that the general response is, well, you knew it could create a child, so you shouldn't have, but then when a woman gets pregnant, that same mindset kind of goes away. Let me look in the comments here. Men need to learn to watch who they sleep with, says Blue Don. That is true, but that is in defense of my last caller, so do women. I do agree you need to watch who you sleep with as a man, but you can't say that when a woman sleeps with a guy, well, he got me pregnant, or all of a sudden you turn into the damsel in distress. He ain't taking care of his kid. He ain't doing his job. Well, that argument can be thrown back. Well, you need to watch who you sleep with then. So I'm not a fan of doing that, but I do believe in being fair on both sides. You can't tell a wealthy man, if you didn't want a baby, you shouldn't have slept with this woman that's now taking you to court for all your money. But then when a woman sleeps with a guy and he's not taking care of his kid or any responsibility, and yeah, same thing. If you wanted a guy to take care of his duties, you should have picked a better man. I mean, let's make no qualms about it. If a guy gets out of prison or he has multiple baby mamas and no job, he can still find plenty of women that will sleep with him unprotected. You have to hold those women accountable to the same standard. That's all I'm saying. But I don't like talking to women about what to do with their bodies. I'm pro-choice 100% on that aspect. But I do believe in fairness and impartiality. Stitch of the truth.
These do work 90 some odd percent of the time. Candy coated cyanide. Stitch of the truth. Talk to me.
Hey man, so it kills me about the whole abortion thing, and I tell people all the time is this: the morality argument. It is what it is, and there's no way you can convince anyone to change their moral position, and that's for anyone, because morals are subjective. But here's the thing that I do want to get across is this, because the way our government does things is a bit hypocritical. Going back to your question about what you said before, why don't they ban abortion across the board, which would be very easy to do? All they would have to do is prove irreparable harm on an unborn baby, which you can do. But let me tell you the reason why they don't. Because an unborn baby does not have rights. I don't care what anyone says. Our government does not recognize an unborn baby. If that was the case,
that's not true. That's not true.
It is true.
I'll let you continue. But as one of the callers pointed out, if you try to rob or beat up a pregnant woman and cause her to have a miscarriage, they will charge you with double homicide. So clearly, the law does, in some cases, give rights to the unborn.
Okay, so I will explain that. So here's the reason why I disagree with you. Number one, a pregnant woman cannot claim an unborn child on her taxes. Number two, if the census comes around and they're counting people and you happen to be expecting, do they count an unborn baby as part of the population? No, they don't.
Okay.
Then on top of that, the reason why whenever someone kills a woman and she happens to be expecting, the reason why they charge a double homicide is that person just committed the abortion without her consent. That is the reason why. It has nothing to do with the unborn child.
If you're being charged with double homicide, who is the second homicide victim? If it's not a person, how can you charge me with homicide?
And that goes back to the hypocrisy of what I've said. Because to me, it seems like to me that if you're going to charge someone with double homicide, then that means that person is a person. But we don't count it as a person. Otherwise, again, it would be a citizen.
Not totally.
Well, I mean, again, they would be a United States citizen. But the fact of the matter is, they're not. I mean, that goes to the hypocrisy of it all. Even in a lot of cases, you cannot even get life insurance on an unborn baby. Then on top of that, if you're in the military and they have what's called SGLI, which is their life insurance, you cannot have that person as a dependent if it's an unborn child. So you can't even do that. So the whole thing is the main hypocrisy of it all, because I mean, whenever they say, well, the unborn child has rights. Well, according to whom? Morality or the government? Certainly not the government. Maybe in your own morality it does, but it doesn't. You know, so the other. Oh, go ahead.
Good. No, the point I was going to try to make is I agree for the most part in regards to what you're saying. Right now, they don't completely view an unborn baby as a human, but I strongly believe we are headed that way. Like one of my callers said that if a woman aborts a baby herself, she should be charged with homicide. That stuff is coming. Right now, I strongly believe it's a give them an inch and take a mile scenarios that right now they've gotten it handed back to the states. But it will, as you're talking about, everything you just discussed will ultimately be litigated in court because those types of events are going to happen. And it will begin to expand further and further to the point where they do start considering the unborn as a human being.
If they indeed do that, then it needs to be granted all the rights as a born citizen. If they indeed do that, that is the only way, which I'm saying right now, they're not going to do that. I don't think they will push towards that. Number one, for political reasons. All right, the minute that they do that, if the Republicans tried to say outlaw abortion across all 50 states, it's no way that'll happen for political reasons alone, because there are a lot of pro-choice Republican females. No woman likes being told what to do with their body. And here's the thing, politically, and this is where the country made a mistake, implementing Roe v. Wade in the first place. The minute that you grant someone something and then you take it away, I mean, man, look, I mean, you're looking at.
Here's why I disagree with you. You said there's a lot of Republicans that are pro-choice.
Women,
almost all of the Republican states are headed to doing exactly what you said they can't do. If you're a Republican woman and you live in a Republican state, you're going to lose that right. Almost a certainty that that's going to happen. So when you say that they can't do it on a national level, here's the way I would tell you they would do it. All you have to do once you get a woman that uses a hanger or drugs to kill her, if you can charge her with homicide, what did she kill? All you need to do is get it so that taking the life of an unborn is considered as murder, which is what they're going to be starting to do to abortion doctors. If you commit an act of abortion in a state where it's illegal, you can be charged with murder. Once you get the courts to start saying that taking the life of an unborn is murder, then in the states where abortion is 100% legal, they're committing acts of murder that has been litigated in the courts. And it will then begin to be illegal for them to do it too. Because you can call it an abortion or whatever you want. The Supreme Court has ruled it as a murder. And you'll have a federal murder charge on you. I strongly believe that is the path to get a national abortion ban.
So this is what I would say. I mean, if they didn't do that path, then that's when I go back to the previous argument as far as what is indeed a citizen. If you're going to say that you're causing irreparable harm upon a fetus, then the questions will be asked, okay, is that unborn child indeed a citizen? Because then it should be granted.
You'll get that. I think that you will get the right to. You'll get the right to claim the unborn on your taxes. All of those other things. Because they want to say the life of the unborn. I think that they will concede those other little smaller points you're talking about. Well, if it's a person, why can't I claim it on my taxes, or why can't I do this? Or I think you will ultimately get women that will win that stuff in court. But at the end of the day, that national abortion ban, particularly if you get a red wave and a Trump or DeSantis in 2024, I believe you'll get that. I really believe a national abortion ban is where they're headed.
Here's the other thing that I would say, and this is why I've said this before. I I'm somewhat on the fence as far as what certain Republican states are going to do. So in 2017, and this is just based on the Planned Parenthood numbers, not all the abortion clinic numbers. 2017, we had over 800,000 abortions. 800,000.
Yeah.
So if you were to take the bottom 20 states and say you banned abortion in the bottom 20 states, and I'm
Okay.
being real liberal with this figure, then
All right.
maybe you reduce that number by 15%. Now, for all these things that will have to happen, number one, there are certain blue states in that bottom 20. So you know that's not going to
Okay.
happen. Then on top of
Okay.
that, for the people that live in the red states, they're going to travel to blue states to get it done. Which is the reason why I'm saying
Some
that
of
at
them.
the
Some of them, because
which is
the
what I'm
reason why.
saying.
Okay, well, let me give you an example. The state of Missouri right now has an actual law on the books that if a mom to be leaves the state of Missouri and goes to another state, they're passing a law that at the point of conception, that child inside of you is considered a resident of Missouri. And the representative from that state said, we're doing this so that if a mom or a person leaves the state and one of our residents is harmed, they can be held accountable for it. So when you say you can leave the state and go somewhere else, there are states that are already addressing that right now, trying to prevent that from happening.
I'm telling you right now, the minute that you do that and you are not permitting someone to go to another state to get something like that done, then I mean that just screams of the beginning stages authoritarianism. I mean, is that where we're going? I mean, to
Yes.
me,
Yeah,
that's
where
what
we're
I'm saying. I mean, if you're doing it, if you're going to do that, and I don't want to stay on that topic very long, but I mean, you're pretty much. I mean, that's the Soviet Union type tactics right there.
Call it
I
what
mean,
you
and
want, but that's where they. I'm telling you, that is a law that's
yeah. I
already
mean,
on the books.
but the other thing I want to say is that to me, going back to the previous argument, so the 800,000 number that I mentioned, the top states that do it, some of those are what's deemed purple states: Georgia, Florida, Texas. I mean, ultimately, the governors in those states, who are all running for re-election, by the way, are going to have to make a decision. They're going to say, hey, we are going to do outright bans, or no, we're not. And I just think that within those states, there are a lot of pro-choice Republican women that very much will be like, hey, well, wait a minute. You know, this also affects me. So there's no compromise in abortion. I don't care if you do it at 6 weeks.
Let me say this though. I often hear women talking about it's wrong to have men telling us what to do with our bodies, and I agree with that. But you'll be amazed at how many pro-choice women there are out there. It's a pro-life rather. There's a lot of pro-life women out there. Governors, like the governor of South Dakota, that's a woman, and she's pro-life as can be. It's a lot of women that's doing this too.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that women is the biggest voting demographic we have in this country. They're all over the place. And so the main thing is, I mean, and let's just be real, the pro-life women are mostly Republican. The pro-choice women are both Democrat and Republican, enough to shift the tide either way. So that's the reason why I'm saying is, you know, a 6-week, you know, ban versus a 13-week ban on abortion still has the same result: a dead baby. So there's no compromise. Either you have it or you don't. And so the main thing is that there are a lot of governors that are just going to have to make up their mind which way they're going to go. And that's the reason why I'm saying
I strongly believe it's going to come from a Republican Supreme Court or Republican Congress or Republican Senate. I don't think it's going to be at the states. I think they're going to do it federally and take it out of the states' hands. If you get Republicans in control of all three branches and they have a strong enough amount of control, I believe that's the way it's going to go. But just like I said before, if a mom tries to take the life of the unborn in a red state, for instance, let's say she uses a hanger or drugs or whatever, and she tries to take the life of the unborn, and that state wants to charge her with homicide, like one of my callers said, and her lawyers argue, how can it be homicide? This is not a life. Once the state can actually show that you killed an actual life, now it has been adjudicated that the unborn is taking the life of an unborn is actually murder. And if you can get that up to the Supreme Court with a 6-3 majority for Republicans to actually agree that taking the life of an unborn child is murder, then that means abortion is illegal in all 50 states. And I believe that they can do that.
If they do that, especially in Missouri, let's just say the example that you gave earlier, there's so many other things that will have to happen. Number one, you would have to know when that woman was pregnant, when she found out that she was pregnant, all kind of privacy stuff that's going to come into play. And if that starts to happen, that gets to the federal level. Let's just say the state level. I'm not even go to the federal level yet. But if that happens at the state level, I'm telling you right now, it is no longer a question of right versus left. It is now a question of authoritarian versus anarchism. That's where it's going to go. And I've been saying this for a long time now. The argument, and I know we get on here, we talk about left versus right. I'm telling you right now that's not the argument. The argument is control. If you look at the political spectrum, top versus bottom, authoritarianism versus anarchists. And
Let me ask you this: what do you think about banning abortion being used as population control? And I'm gonna tell you this from this angle because I've heard this from some of my viewers. Mostly white, but I've heard African Americans, particularly Snacks or whatever his name said this, is that they believe abortion should be banned because I think Stacks said
we need more numbers.
African Americans. Yeah.
Okay.
And the same thing a lot of white folks believe is that they're being close to becoming not a majority anymore, so they want more citizens. So what about the notion that there are men that want more humans being born and they're using a woman's body to make that happen?
Okay, I'm glad you asked this question because I researched this and people are talking about Margaret Sanger, and I found something, and I'm going to paraphrase for you. And I want you to take a guess who said this. The Negro need to be more liberal and realize that in order to live a more efficient life, that we're better prepared, we need to practice contraception a lot more. Who would you say said that?
I have no clue.
I'm going to tell you who said that. Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois said that.
Wow.
Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois said that, a black man, the founder of the NAACP. And basically what he was getting at is this, is that at the end of the day, it is not about numbers, because let's just say you have a big family, say 9 kids, and you're on government assistance, and say you have another family that has 8 kids, another family that has 7 kids. What do you think is going to happen? They will all need government assistance, which means that our taxes will go up, which means that it would be such a load on the government system, we won't be able to do any damn thing.
And that's and that's why I believe this, as much as folks want to protect the sanctity of life, I'm pro-choice because I believe the solution is worse than the actual problem. Like you're talking about taxes going up, bunch of kids in foster care, kids that are not being adopted, et cetera, and women in jail for homicide. I believe the solution to the abortions is worse than the problem itself.
Exactly. So here's the thing. As far as numbers is concerned, the most powerful, I won't say, well, one of the most powerful and more influential communities that we have that are low in numbers is the Jewish community. Our problem with African Americans is not numbers. It's not the fact that we don't have numbers. It's the fact that, and I'll quote Malcolm X, we're not organized. That is our issue. It is not about having more numbers. We are not organized. So I wholeheartedly disagree with Snacks. It's not, that's the simplistic way of looking at it, to saying we need more. More of anything does not necessarily solve anything. It is organization that needs to be solved at the root of our problems.
Quality over quantity. All right, man, I got to move it on, though. Appreciate you. You know how it works.
All right, my dude, take care.
Absolutely. Catch you on the next go around. All right, folks, man, I think the man had several points. I agree with them on far more than I disagree with him on. But yeah, I strongly believe that one thing I disagree with him on is the notion that a national abortion ban is not coming. And I get this from the right all the time. You guys are fear mongering.
Yeah, we would have said the same thing if we had suggested that Roe versus Wade is going to be overturned if President Trump gets elected. You're fear mongering. That's not going to happen. That shit was made into law 50 years ago. Look at where we are now. Here's another example. Just yesterday, the U.S. Congress voted to codify the right of marriage, which means they strengthened same-sex marriage laws. And you have a lot of Republicans, because 47 Republicans also voted in strengthening same-sex marriage rights. You got a lot of Republicans like, well, see, that shows you we were never going to mess with same-sex marriage rights. You guys were fear-mongering. But when you look at the numbers, there are 435 members of Congress. 213 of them are Republican. Out of that 213 Republican members of Congress, 47 of them voted in favor of strengthening same-sex marriage rights, which means almost 80% of them, almost 80% of them voted against it. So if you realize that almost 80% of Republicans are against same-sex marriage rights, and you're expecting a blue wave, and many are expecting a potential re-election of a Republican president, without this codifying happening from the liberals, what are the chances that they would have went after same-sex marriage rights? With an 80% number of them not wanting same-sex marriage rights, not voting to codify it. So I'm going to tell you right off the bat, your humble correspondent, I don't think it was fear-mongering at all. I think it was very similar to what Ruth Bader Ginsburg was alluding to on abortion rights. You need to codify this shit. It's vulnerable. And fortunately, they caught on with same-sex marriage rights and decided to do that while they had a majority, and they were able to get it through. But 80%, almost 80% of Republicans this week were not in favor of strengthening same-sex marriage rights, yet accusing liberals of fear-mongering when they suggested if you guys were to get in power, you're going to go after same-sex marriage rights. You tell me where that's going. Anyway, folks, listen, I do got to wrap this up. I got to make a few moves. I do appreciate you guys rolling out with your boy. Follow the channel. This is the type of content we do every day, all day. Generally, 7 o'clock is when I'm on here, but I had an early broadcast. And like I always make it clear, this is a MAGA-friendly zone here. So we don't block your comments or try to make you look stupid. We just have civil dialogue. Your humble correspondent, yours truly, I often learn a lot here too. So it's not about, me trying to make you look stupid or say I'm always right. It's about us actually talking and having dialogue. So all are welcome. Anyhow, it's your boy Tim, the handsome liberal. Like I said, follow the platform. Catch you on the next go round. Stop with the redneck platform. Who said that? Look at it. I'm just looking at the comments. Usually, guys stop with the redneck platform. That's funny. Damn, I just logged on. Sorry to have you leak, James Dick. Sorry, I got to run out, but I'm just looking here. Doesn't matter if codified. The GOP extreme codists are legislating from the bench. That's scary. That is scary. Real quick, when you look at what happened with, I forget who Barack Obama was trying to appoint. And Mitch McConnell stepped up there and prevented Barack Obama with a year left in his term from appointing a Supreme Court justice that he had the right to do. But then when Trump got a chance to appoint Amy Coney Barrett and only had a few months left in his term, he let him do it. I hear people say all the time that Democrats cheat and the Democrats don't play fair. You're going to tell me that was fair? That Obama had a year left in his term. I think who was the guy? I cannot think of the guy that Barack Obama tried to appoint, but he had almost a year left. Merrick Garland. Thank you there, Rep. Barack Obama had almost a year left in his term. And Mitch McConnell, along with a bunch of other Republican senators, claimed, hey, we need to wait till the election is there. And it prevented this man from appointing a justice with almost a year left. And then here comes Trump with only a few months left in his term. And they allowed him to appoint a Supreme Court justice. If you don't see any bias or unfairness about that, and you only want to pretend like the liberals are unfair, yeah. Catch you guys later. Gotta go.